before your first breath, before your heartbeat echoed in a mother's womb, before your body took form from the dust of stars. There was a choice. Not random, not accidental. A sacred moment when your soul, ancient and wise, said yes to this life. You may not remember it now, but somewhere deep in your being, you feel it. A quiet whisper, like a dream you once had as a child. A knowing that you are not just flesh and blood, that you arrived here with purpose. This isn't a story of biology. It's the story of your becoming, of how you crossed the veil between worlds, of the exact moment your soul, infinite and luminous, stepped across the threshold and entered the temple of your body. And tonight, that sacred moment will be revealed. Take a breath. Slow down. Let your heart listen. Because the answers you've been searching for are already inside you. You've just forgotten how to hear them. You see, there's a moment so profound, so intimate, that the universe holds its breath to witness it. Not when the sperm meets the egg, not when the body takes its first breath at birth, but before that, before light becomes form. A veil exists between the realms, the unseen and the seen, where the soul waits, watching, listening, preparing to descend, not like a fall, but like a prayer returning to earth. You were there. You chose this. There was a time, long before you had a name, when you stood at the edge of existence, and before you entered, you saw everything. The parents you would choose, the life you would step into, the joys, the heartbreaks, the silence of grief, the thunder of love, the wounds you would carry, and the light you would awaken through them. No one forced you. You knew the risks. You knew the forgetting. And still, you came. Because the soul does not come here to be safe. It comes here to grow. But when exactly does it arrive? Is it at the moment of conception, when the miracle of life first sparks into motion? Or does it wait, watching the cells divide, the form take shape, before stepping in? Spiritual traditions around the world have whispered answers for centuries. Some say the soul enters at conception, the spark of life igniting not just body, but being. Others believe it happens later, when the tiny heart begins to beat, pulsing with divine rhythm, signaling that the temple is ready to be inhabited. And some say it is not one moment, but many. A descent in layers, a sacred unfolding. Eastern mystics call it the sevenfold descent, the soul clothing itself, one veil at a time. First, the divine spark, then emotion, then thought, and only then a full embodiment in flesh. Western mystics speak of silver cords and divine seals, of golden lights that descend through spirals of time, of angels weaving light into matter. Each voice offers a piece of the puzzle, but none the whole. And maybe that's the point. Because the arrival of a soul is not a science. It's not a moment that can be measured on a clock or scanned on a machine. It's an event that happens across dimensions, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and physical, all at once. A sacred convergence. But what if you could remember? What if right now, as you listen, some forgotten part of you could begin to stir? Close your eyes for a moment. Can you feel it? That tug in your chest? That sudden heat behind your eyes? That's not coincidence. That's memory. Your soul remembers its arrival, not in words, but in presence. Not in logic, but in vibration. Have you ever met a newborn and felt something ancient in their gaze, as if they carried stars in their eyes? That is not imagination. That is recognition. The soul remembers what the body forgets, and so do you. You've always known that this life is more than a string of random moments. You felt it in dreams that linger, in déjà vu that stops your breath, in quiet tears that fall for no clear reason, in the way certain songs crack you open, not because of the lyrics, but because your soul is whispering, "I've been here before." We are here to remember what was once sacred and obvious, that life doesn't begin with a heartbeat. It begins with a vow, a soul's promise to return, to carry light into matter, to forget so it may remember, to fall so it may rise, to suffer so it may love more deeply than before. And so the soul waits. It watches as the mother sleeps, as the cells divide, as the body begins to hum with life. And then, at a moment chosen not by chance but by destiny, it enters. Maybe for you, it was during a vivid dream your mother had, of someone calling her mom before she even knew. Maybe it was the first time her heart skipped a beat for no medical reason, as something unseen whispered now. Maybe it was when she saw the world differently one morning, like a soft veil had lifted, and didn't know why. These are the sacred signs, clues left behind when a soul crosses the veil. And if you listen carefully, you'll realize your arrival left them too. Because every soul makes ripples in the field, energetic signatures only the heart can perceive. And when your soul entered, something changed. In her body, in his dreams, in the air around you. The world felt it. The moment you arrived, the earth exhaled. The body is formed in silence, but the soul arrives in song. A song older than time. Not with lyrics or melody, but with a resonance so ancient it vibrates through dimensions. A song that says, "I remember. I return. I choose." It's easy to forget how sacred you are, to get lost in the mirror of your own face and mistake the body for the whole. But you were not made by biology alone. You were dreamed into being by a soul who traveled through stars, memory, and mystery to get here. Somewhere along the line, we started calling this a pregnancy, a biological process, a series of trimesters and hormones and tests. But the soul knows it's more than that. It's a pilgrimage, and every step of that journey, from formlessness to form, carries spiritual meaning. Have you ever wondered why the number 40 appears so often in sacred texts? 40 days and 40 nights, 40 years in the desert, 40 days of fasting, 40 days between death and rebirth in Tibetan Buddhism. And yes, the first 40 days of gestation. It's not coincidence. It's spiritual geometry, a cosmic schedule hidden inside the human experience. In those first 40 days, something extraordinary happens. The soul begins to descend, slowly, softly, with sacred precision. Not all at once, but in phases. Like the moon, it waxes into the body, one luminous sliver at a time. In the first week, there is only a spark, a flicker, the faintest echo of intention. In the second and third weeks, the body begins to receive, as if it knows something invisible is coming. The cells divide, the blood forms, the structures take shape. But behind all of that, the soul is circling, waiting for its moment. By the fourth week, a heart begins to beat, a rhythm that did not exist before. A rhythm that seems to say, "I am here. I am ready." That moment, the first heartbeat, is more than biology. It is a spiritual signal, a bell tolling across dimensions. The temple is ready. Some traditions say that is when the soul enters fully. Others say it's merely a doorway, a crack in the veil where part of the soul steps through, while the rest still lingers in the realm between. But what nearly all mystics agree on is this: the soul arrives gradually, like dawn, not lightning. It doesn't crash into the body, it kisses it. First with awareness, then with emotion, then with memory, and finally with full presence. And while science can only measure tissue and heartbeat, mothers have always known. They feel it in the sudden flood of dreams, in the strange stillness that overtakes them for no reason, in the way time bends around them, like the world is leaning in closer, whispering, "Something is happening here." There are mothers who wake up knowing, who haven't taken a test, who haven't missed a cycle, but they wake up and say, "Someone just arrived." And they're right. Because the soul does not wait for permission. It enters when it's ready, when the stars align, when the spirit guides nod, when the unseen realm opens a path. Some say it begins with a dream of golden light, a dream of a child calling from across a garden, a dream of being told, "You've been chosen." These are not dreams, really. They are messages, echoes of the soul introducing itself. And they happen not just to the mother, sometimes to the father, sometimes to a grandmother, sometimes even to a stranger who tells the pregnant woman, "There's a light around you," without knowing why. Because when a soul begins to enter, the field changes. Even the animals know. Pets act differently. Cats curl around the belly. Dogs grow protective. Birds come closer to the window. The world responds, because incarnation is not a private event. It is a cosmic ripple. And if you are sensitive, if your soul still remembers its own arrival, you can feel it too. It's that moment when time stops for just a second, when the air thickens, when your heart skips, and you don't know why. As if something or someone just stepped into the room. You see, the soul doesn't crash into existence. It writes itself into the world, like poetry, like breath. There is a moment, often unmarked, where the mother feels a sudden weight. Not heaviness, but presence. As if another awareness is now with her, watching, listening, learning how to be human again. And from that point forward, everything changes, even if she doesn't know it yet, even if no one tells her. She has become more than herself. She has become a vessel, not just for life, but for light. Now pause for a moment and think about your own story. Do you know the moment your soul arrived? Not when you were born, but when you entered. Do you ever feel like there was a turning point in your mother's life? A moment that split her world in two, even if she didn't understand why? That might have been you. The soul leaves signs, energetic fingerprints, subtle shifts that mark the crossing. Sometimes it's in a song that played when she first suspected. Sometimes it's in a moment of silence she could never explain. Sometimes it's in the way the light hit her skin one morning, and she felt like something sacred was beginning. These are not accidents. Your arrival was felt, even if no one spoke it aloud, even if it was dismissed, forgotten, brushed aside. The soul doesn't need recognition. It needs readiness. And when the time came, you stepped in, quietly, courageously, willingly, because you remembered something the world forgot. That life is not random, it is chosen by you. There's a reason the mother often doesn't know right away. Why the first few weeks pass in quiet mystery. Because the soul prefers to enter in silence. It does not need announcement. It does not crave celebration. It slips through the veil like a secret, sacred and unspoken. The greatest arrivals always come quietly. In many traditions, these first 40 days are considered untouchable, holy. The embryo is not yet fully of this world, and the soul is still in communion with the realm it came from. There's a belief, whispered through the oldest teachings, that during this time, the soul is in two places at once. It is still drinking from the divine, from the memory of where it came. And yet, it is also beginning to nest inside the body, testing the water, stretching itself into the unfamiliar, letting its light drip slowly into the tiny growing form like honey from a sacred jar. It's not that the soul hesitates, it's that it honors the gravity of this act, to descend into matter, to forget who it truly is, to carry lifetimes of wisdom into a space so small, so soft, so vulnerable, is not something rushed. It is not simply entering a body. It is entering a story, your story. And so it waits. It watches. It listens to the heartbeat, the hormones, the rhythm of the new home it will inhabit. And only when it senses the alignment, not just physical but energetic, does it begin its deeper descent. This is why so many mothers report strange dreams during early pregnancy. Not just random images, but deeply symbolic visions, gardens, light, children with names they've never heard, but suddenly feel familiar. Messages like, "I'm ready now," or "Don't worry, I'm here." These aren't just dreams, they are visitations. The soul is speaking, introducing itself, bridging the gap before memory fades. Some describe waking up with tears and no explanation, or feeling a presence at night, like someone standing beside the bed. A soft presence, not frightening, but ancient, as if a part of them had returned home without ever leaving. Even the most skeptical mothers report changes during these early weeks, an intuitive clarity, an unusual calm, a subtle rearranging of their inner world, not due to hormones, but because another consciousness is now entwined with theirs. You see, when the soul enters, it doesn't just affect the embryo, it affects the field. The electromagnetic signature of the mother changes. Her aura shifts. Her nervous system begins to carry dual frequencies, hers and the one gently weaving itself into being. That's why emotions spike. That's why cravings come. That's why some mothers feel like they've become more sensitive to light, sound, energy. It's because they are. The soul's presence heightens everything. Ancient texts refer to this as the sacred dance, the invisible choreography between the incoming soul and the mother's body. Each step perfectly timed, each movement imbued with meaning. There are no missteps, no coincidences, only divine mathematics unfolding in the invisible. And around the 4th or 5th week, when the heart begins to beat, something else happens. The soul breathes, not air. That will come later. But something far more subtle. The first spiritual breath. In Eastern traditions, this is known as the prana darshan, the moment when the soul begins to inhale the experience of material life. A slow, sacred breath, inhaling form, exhaling light. And this continues, breath after breath, until birth. It is a gradual merging, like a river meeting the sea. Some mystics describe it as the soul tasting the body, not fully moving in all at once, but sending its essence in waves, testing the alignment, sensing the conditions, making final adjustments before full embodiment. That's why some pregnancies end early, not because something went wrong, but because the soul decided, not yet, not this time. This isn't the story I need to live. And though it may feel like loss in the physical, in the spiritual, it is simply timing. A lesson paused, not erased. But when the soul says yes, fully, finally, completely, the universe responds. The signs multiply. Synchronicities, dreams, books falling open to the right page, strangers saying exactly what the parents needed to hear, songs with lyrics that feel too perfect to be random. And all around the mother, nature leans in. Animals behave differently. Weather patterns shift. Even time seems to stretch or shrink in her presence. Why? Because incarnation is not a private act. It's a cosmic event. And everyone, everything, whether they realize it or not, bears witness to the arrival. Your arrival. It's easy to dismiss these things, to call them chance or imagination. But if you've ever felt something stir inside you at the mention of this, if your skin has tingled or your chest felt warm, it's not fantasy, it's remembrance. You remember your own arrival, even now, even after all these years. It lives inside your breath, in the way you sometimes stare at the stars and feel a longing you can't name, in the way certain lullabies make your eyes sting, even though you don't know why. In the stillness of early morning, when the world is quiet, and something inside you whispers, you chose this, you entered, you descended, you said yes, and now, through this very message, your soul is reminding you, you were never just born, you arrived, and it was sacred. Most people think the soul enters only once, that there is a single moment when it anchors, takes its seat inside the growing body, and begins the human journey. But the mystics knew better. They spoke of layers, not one moment of incarnation, but many. The soul, they said, is not a spark that drops into flesh. It is a wave that flows through time. It enters gradually, in stages, like light filtering through a stained glass window, each color revealing a deeper part of the whole. And during those sacred early weeks, something remarkable happens. The soul doesn't just anchor to a body, it chooses a path. You see, the body is not a prison, it is a portal, a sacred vessel that the soul chooses on purpose, with full awareness of what it will contain. And that choice begins long before conception. In the spiritual planes, the soul surveys its options, lineages, families, karmic threads, open timelines. It studies, it listens. It feels into what its next mission must be. Then it chooses. Sometimes it's drawn to joy, laughter, light. Other times to pain, not as punishment, but as alchemical fire. A place where its growth will be forged. This is why your life is not random. It is sacredly tailored. Your parents, your circumstances, even the wounds you've endured, they are all part of the soul's deeper architecture. Not always easy, but always meaningful. And once the choice is made, the soul begins its descent. First with intention, then with preparation, then with entry. But that entry, too, is a process. Some esoteric traditions teach that different aspects of the soul enter at different times. The first to arrive is the spark, the essence of I am. It is this that makes the cells come alive with potential. It's not something science can measure, but the moment it arrives, the body begins to remember what it is becoming. Then comes the emotional field, the layer that will shape how the being feels, bonds, loves, cries. This often happens around the 3rd month of pregnancy. Suddenly, the mother begins to experience a profound shift, not just physically, but energetically. She starts to feel the child's mood before it can be seen. She may dream of their temperament, their fears, their light, their voice, because what's forming is no longer just tissue, it's emotion incarnate. And then, later still, comes the full presence, the memory of the soul's past journeys, the karmic story, the deeper purpose. This is why some children are born with eyes that seem ancient, why they speak wisdom at age 2, why they carry grief they've never lived in this life. Because part of them remembers. But what about science? Is there room for the mystical in the medical? More than most realize. In recent years, researchers have begun to uncover anomalies they cannot explain. Fetuses responding to sound far earlier than expected. Musical preferences in the womb. Heart rate changes in response to parental emotions. One study found that unborn children respond to their mother's thoughts. Not just her voice or breath, but her mental state. When she feels peace, their hearts settle. When she feels fear, their heartbeats change. It's not just biology. It's a conversation. A constant, silent dialogue between the mother's soul and the one entering her womb. And sometimes, just sometimes, it flows the other way too. There are mothers who, without warning, begin to experience memories that are not their own. Images, visions, names they don't recognize, emotions they've never felt. It is the soul speaking through them, sharing fragments of its journey, as if to say, "This is who I've been. This is who I'm becoming." These are not anomalies. They are sacred signs. But our culture is too loud to hear them, too fast, too skeptical. We measure the heartbeat, but we miss the moment it was chosen. We track the cells, but we forget to honor the spirit shaping them. You were never just born, you were received. And the signs of that reception remain, if you know where to look. The world leaves clues. Perhaps your mother had a dream she never told you about. A vivid, glowing being walking toward her just days before she found out she was pregnant. Perhaps she felt something, a sudden stillness in the middle of the day, a whisper of something changing. Perhaps a stranger stopped her on the street, smiled and said, "There's something around you," not knowing what they were sensing. These things happen more often than we admit, but we've forgotten how to believe in them. The soul, however, never forgets, and it continues to speak. Through memory, intuition, synchronicity, through that soft feeling in your chest when you walk into certain places, through the dreams you have of children you haven't met yet, through the chills you get at stories like this. It is not coincidence. It is the soul's way of saying, "I'm here. I've always been here, and I remember." You are the result of 1,000 unseen choices, a cosmic alignment of will, light, blood, and purpose. And if you close your eyes now and listen, not with your ears, but with the soul behind your ribs, you'll feel it. That moment, the moment you arrived. By the time the mother knows for sure, by the time a test confirms what her body already whispers, the soul has often been there for weeks. It has already made its decision. It has already begun the weaving, not just of tissue, but of time, of karma, of destiny. The body may still be small, hidden, forming in the quiet cave of the womb, but the soul is already leaving its fingerprints, in the way her emotions shift unexpectedly, in the way she begins to cry at sunsets, or wakes up remembering things she's never lived, in the strange dreams, the whispers she hears in the in-between moments, and sometimes in the presence, the unmistakable feeling that someone else is there, not a passenger, but a partner. You see, this journey is not just about giving life, it's about receiving it. And the soul that enters is not just arriving to learn, it's arriving to teach, to mirror, to catalyze, to awaken. Every soul chooses a family that will shape it, but also one that it will shape in return. This is why so many spiritual traditions describe the act of incarnation not as a descent, but as a mission. The soul is not falling into form, it is stepping into service. There are mothers who report knowing the child's name before they've spoken a word, not because they picked it, but because they heard it. Some hear it in dreams, some in prayer, some whispered in quiet moments. A name rising unbidden in the middle of a grocery store aisle or on a walk at dusk, carried on wind that didn't touch the trees. That is not imagination, that is communication. Because the soul doesn't wait until birth to begin its connection. It begins now, in the womb, in the energy, in the vibration of the mother's thoughts, in the quality of her breath. Science has discovered that fetuses respond to stories read aloud, to music, to voices. But deeper than that, they respond to feeling, to love, to worry, to grief. Even before ears have formed, they feel, because consciousness is not tied to ears or neurons. It is tied to presence, and that presence is already awake. In certain Eastern teachings, this is known as the first bloom of memory. It is the stage when the soul begins to adjust to the limitations of time, space, and identity. When it begins to forget the infinite, not as loss, but as gift. Because forgetting is what makes remembering sacred. Because limitation is what makes love powerful. Because the veil is what makes the light worth walking toward. And even in the forgetting, some fragments remain. You can see it in children who speak of "before I came here," or who tell stories that make their parents pause, blink, and whisper, "How could they know that?" You can hear it in the way they hum melodies no one taught them, in the way they look into your eyes like they're looking through you, not with confusion, but with recognition. As if to say, "We've done this before," because in many cases, you have. Advanced souls often return to familiar lineages. They incarnate into families where healing is needed, where a karmic thread needs closure, where a gift must be awakened. And so, the soul doesn't just choose a mother or a father. It chooses a storyline, one that will shape it, and one that it, in turn, will help shape. That's why some pregnancies come easily, and others only after years of waiting. Why some souls arrive quickly, and others linger in the ether, watching, waiting, orchestrating events like a silent conductor. It's not random. It's not failure. It's timing, divine timing. The soul arrives when everything, even the unseen, is ready. And when it does arrive, something in the world shifts, not just for the mother, but for those around her. Fathers have reported sudden dreams of holding a child before even knowing they were expecting. Grandparents say they wake up with names they don't understand, or a warmth in the chest they can't explain. Even pets begin to act differently. It is the field adjusting, the universe making space. Because when a soul arrives, it doesn't just enter a body, it enters the collective. Its presence begins affecting timelines, rewriting possibilities, reshaping futures, and those sensitive to energy, even if they don't know it, feel the shift, like a ripple on still water, a vibration moving out in all directions. This is why so many children are born in synchronicity with dreams, signs, even storms. Because the soul's entry is not passive. It is an announcement. One most people can't hear, but their spirit does. And if you pay attention, you'll realize that your own soul made ripples too. That there were signs, moments, synchronicities. You just haven't been taught how to recognize them. Until now. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, have you ever been told something unusual about your birth? Did your mother have strange dreams? Was there a storm a song, a silence too loud to explain? Did someone say you felt different even before you were born? Those are the clues. Your soul left them. Because no arrival of that magnitude comes without a wake. And if you listen, you'll begin to hear it. The echo, the hum, the distant ringing of the sacred bell that sounded when you crossed the veil. You are not just a body. You are the echo of a choice. You are the ripple of a divine decision. You are the evidence that the sacred is real, that the soul is not theory, but presence. And your presence has always meant something. There's a moment in every incarnation when the soul looks down and sees its own future. Not in detail, not a script carved in stone, but a tapestry. Threads of possibility, colors of purpose, wounds that will one day become medicine. And before it enters the body, the soul asks one final question. Am I ready to become this? Because incarnation is not just arrival, it is agreement. An agreement to forget, to bleed, to love, to be broken open, to laugh with lungs that have never breathed before, to carry divine light inside fragile skin. And the soul knows, once it enters, everything will change. No longer pure energy, no longer formless. Now it must become specific. Now it must become you. This is why so many traditions speak of the threshold moment, the exact second when the soul commits. The Hindus call it samskara, the soul's imprint sealing itself into matter. In Tibetan teachings, it's the moment of choice sealing, where all deliberation ends and the soul fully steps through. In Christian mysticism, it's when the divine spark touches flesh and whispers, "Let there be light." And once that choice is made, there is no turning back. The soul begins its full anchoring into blood, into heartbeat, into memory. It is not just a being entering a body. It is a divine consciousness intertwining with destiny. But here's what few understand. The soul doesn't do this alone. All along the way, it is accompanied by guides, by elders, by light beings who have walked this path before. They stand at the gate. They hold the soul in sacred witness. They offer final blessings, final adjustments, final light. And then, they release it. Some mothers in those quiet early mornings feel them. Not just one presence inside, but many. They describe sensing a circle around them. Warmth, energy, a sense of being held. That's not imagination, that's memory. Of a soul being escorted, of a consciousness being blessed. Because this is not just birth, it is ceremony. And you were part of it. There are people who go through life feeling out of place, like they arrived here too early or too late, like their soul is still catching up with their body. And often, they're right. Because sometimes the soul hesitates, not in fear, but in caution. It enters in stages, layers, and sometimes not all parts arrive together. One part anchors at conception, another at the heartbeat, another still during the quickening, when the mother first feels movement, and the last may not fully enter until birth, or even after. That's why some people feel like they didn't wake up until a certain moment in childhood. Why others speak of sudden awareness as toddlers, or moments of clarity they can't explain. It's not delay, it's design. Your soul knew when to enter fully, and it chose that moment with care. You may have arrived in pieces, but you are whole now, and you always were. Even after birth, the soul remembers. In the first few weeks, infants often stare into corners, laugh at empty spaces, cry at nothing. But what if it's not nothing? What if it's memory of the place they just came from? of the faces that escorted them through the veil, of the love they left behind to be here. This is why in many cultures, newborns are treated not just as babies, but as sacred visitors, guests from the realm beyond, wise ones in tiny bodies. Because for a brief time after birth, the veil is still thin. The soul still glows with the light of where it came from, and those who see with spirit can feel it. You've felt it too, haven't you? That moment when you held a newborn and felt your chest ache for no reason. Not with sadness, but with awe. With the sense that you were standing in the presence of something ancient and new. That's not sentimentality. That's truth. A soul has arrived, and you recognized it. So what does this mean for you now? It means that your life, your presence, your very being here is sacred beyond comprehension. It means that before you took a breath, before you had a name, before anyone knew you were coming, your soul said yes to this path, to this story, to this body. You didn't fall here. You came with intention. And everything that has happened since, every joy, every sorrow, every silence, has been part of that unfolding. Because the soul doesn't just enter once, it keeps arriving. Every time you remember, every time you heal, every time you forgive, every time you love despite the pain, the soul steps in again, more fully, more truly, more beautifully. Until one day you realize you are not waiting to become whole. You are remembering that you already are. You were not born the moment you took your first breath. You were born in silence, in surrender, in choice, long before the world saw you. And now, you remember. This remembering is not just about the past. It's about who you are still becoming. Because the soul's entry is not a single event, frozen in time. It is a continuum, a sacred dance between matter and light, time and eternity. You arrived once, yes, but you have also been arriving ever since. With every act of courage, with every moment you chose love over fear, with every quiet decision to stay when everything in you wanted to run. Each of those moments was another step inward, another anchoring, another embodiment of your own divinity. That's the sacred paradox. You came here to be human, but being human is how you remember you are more than human. All this time, you've felt it, haven't you? The sensation that you carry something ancient inside you. A knowing that flickers in dreams, in quiet mornings, in the space between thoughts. A sense that your life means more than what you were taught. That you were not placed here randomly. That your story is not just personal, it's cosmic. That the pain you've carried had purpose. That the love you give changes more than you can see. You've always felt it, but you didn't have the words until now. Now you understand. You are the soul. You are the arrival. You are the ceremony that began long before your name was spoken. And for those who are preparing to receive a soul, for the mothers and fathers, the seekers, the open-hearted ones wondering if they are ready, know this: you are not alone. The soul that chooses you is watching, not to judge, but to align. It is listening to your songs, to your fears, to the way your heart aches for something more. It doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. Because souls do not seek perfect families. They seek resonance, authenticity, love. The very moment you whisper, "I'm ready," even if you don't feel it fully, something begins. And somewhere beyond the veil, a soul turns toward you. Now take a moment. Let your eyes close. Feel the breath moving in and out of your body. Feel the space within your chest, the one that tightens when you cry and expands when you laugh. That is where your soul entered. That is where it lives. And that is where it speaks. Not in loud proclamations, but in softness, in intuition, in longing, in the way a particular song makes you tear up, in the way a child's laughter cracks something open in you, in the way the sky sometimes feels like it's remembering you. These are not just feelings. They are signals, sacred breadcrumbs, reminders that the soul is real and it never stopped arriving. So the next time you wonder who you really are, the next time you feel small, lost, broken, forgotten, remember this. You are not just the child of your parents. You are the child of stars, of intention, of unseen realms that conspired in perfect harmony to bring you here. Not one part of your arrival was a mistake. Every breath you take is part of a sacred plan. Every heartbeat a rhythm older than earth. Every tear, holy water. And when you doubt that, when the world gets too loud, come back to this truth. You didn't fall into this life. You chose it, and it chose you. And that is nothing short of divine. If these words stirred something ancient inside you, if a memory long buried suddenly felt close, then let your soul speak. In the comments, share what you remembered, what you felt, what whispered to you between the lines. Let others see your light, because your voice might awaken someone else's memory too. And if you feel called to, offer this video like a blessing to someone else who may be on the edge of remembering. Because we are all walking each other back home. One breath, one heartbeat, one sacred arrival at a time. And you are already on your way. Thank you for walking this path with me. You are seen, you are known, and above all, you are remembered.